So, if you are, like me, puzzled by the question, what can leavers possibly imagine to be the benefits of Brexit, then you need to remember another question. The one that guides detectives and any criminal investigator. Who benefits? Whose interests would be served by Brexit? A Brexit Britain would struggle on its own in a world economy already tied up in many existing trade deals among the many EU-like trading blocs that have come into existence to emulate the EU itself. We would be forced to become a low-tax, low-regulation economy to attract inward investment. So the question becomes, who in the UK benefits from a low-tax, low-regulation economy? Well, it would not be the people who benefit from the existence of an NHS, state education, welfare and regulations that protect employee rights and the environment. A Sunderland car worker, for example, such things need sufficient tax revenues and pooled resources. A low-tax economy would therefore not, because it could not, benefit those who rely on what taxes pay for. It would instead benefit who do not use the NHS because they have private medical insurance, who do not need a state education system because their children were educated privately, who will never need welfare because they are rich, who will object to nothing, who will not object not being able to sack their employees easily, and who do not care if city air quality is bad because they have their houses in the country, and do not care if our beaches are dirty because they can take their holidays in exotic locations abroad. People like Jacob Rees-Mogg, for example. Now, I do not object to Jacob Rees-Mogg or anyone else having medical insurance, educating their children privately. That is a legitimate choice. But I object to a system that, not wishing to pay taxes to fund the NHS and education system. I object to them not caring whether there is an excellent NHS and an education system, and whether there is a welfare provision and a regulatory landscape that protects employees and the environment. These are all the things that a civilised community should care about, and in the interest of everyone, but people who want a low-tax, low-deregulated UK are caring only about their own pockets. The rest, as they say, can go hang. Moreover, they accept that Brexit will shrink the national wealth, but that just means they will have a larger slice of a smaller pie, and therefore more influence over it. The longer-term fate of the economy and the nation need not much concern to them. They have the means to move to America if things become to third world here. So Brexit is about the Rees-Moggs of Britain, not anyone else. Yet the Sunderland car worker who voted for it, how come? How come they were not concerned? The Rees-Moggs, the Farages, the Daily Mail and Express sang about sovereignty and immigration and put the blame for all the ills of the world on the EU. It worked a treat, and with just enough of those living standards have stagnated under austerity measures. Yet these latter would become the first victims of what Brexit really means. They have been conned into supporting an exercise that is in their own worst interest. Brexit is not about sovereignty. The government white paper admits we never lost it. It is not about immigration. Immigration cannot and will not stop because the country needs it and it is a net contributor to the GDP. The EU, for all its flaws and problems, has been a huge boon to our economy and a great success in many areas of national life, not least in those very regulations that Brexiteers would scrap. No, Brexit is not about any of those things. It is about the pockets of the Rees-Moggs and those who desire to be a bigger frog because the pond is smaller. But he's also about revenge. Rupert Murdoch wants to hurt the EU because it won't kowtow to him like the UK Tories kowtow to him. Some businesses back Brexit because the EU targets monopoly practices and tax dodges, and they want to use the UK as a low tax offshore aircraft carrier. So how did the Rees-Moggs con the Sunderland car worker and others who voted Leave? It's no secret. Remember when Donald Trump said during his election campaign he was Mr. Brexit? It was because his campaign used the same techniques based on big data in targeting a variety of messages to a variety of constituencies of interest, thus corralling them into an unfettered vote. It works like follows. Listen to a Trump speech. It seems incoherent and self-congratulatory. This is because it is made up of a patchwork of messages, each one targeting a different voter group. Each one will hear the message that most interests it, and will not pay much attention to the other messages in the speech. Although the overall tone is easier for campaigners on extreme political wings to shout and promise and threaten without treating what they say as much as genuine comments, helps also because it makes them seem different and determined. Political moderates trying to explain the details of sensible policies do not sound exciting. In the EU referendum, the same big data experts as helped Trump were at work here. In that campaign, Remainers were of one mind. They wished to stay in the EU. They knew what the EU was, and Leavers were of many different minds with different reasons, some of them bizarre. In addition to the manipulated reasons fed to them about immigrants and sovereignty. Accordingly, the Leave campaign scattered different messages to different constituencies. Even the immigration message was tailored to workers concerned that their jobs were being taken by Poles working for less money, to pensioners in well-off all-white county villages who had hardly ever seen an immigrant and who were therefore all the more afraid of them. Prejudice is usually the child of ignorance. Those few who stand to benefit from Brexit know that many of those who they can manipulate or persuade into voting Leave did not have ideas, only attitudes about the EU and the UK, and the meaning of the former to use the latter. To change ideas, you need evidence and argument. To annex and use attitudes, you address emotion. Take back control and vague generalisation of the word immigrant, the lie that Brussels exerts dictatorial control over UK's affairs, and these were all the more dishonest tools used to that end. The Leave campaign was a con, perpetuated by many of those who will reap the few and highly dubious benefits of Brexit. If the UK leaves the EU for a position of inglorious solitude on the world stage, if the UK leaves, Brexit is not a done deal, we can stop it. And if the felons who are trying to drag us out succeed temporarily, it will not stop us from fighting to get the UK back in. And we will get it back in when the lies and the self-interest and the manipulations of the Brexiteers have been defeated, and the future of the UK will be as a full partner with its European friends and allies in the EU.